Yes, good morning everyone. So yeah, by the time other people join, let's have some revision. So if we talk about last lecture, then we were discussing about various layouts. So do you have any idea now? Let's try to revise it from your side. Like what do you mean by layout? Why we are using it? How many types are there? And what is the use of each and every layout? So my first question is, why do we need layout in any of the programming language? What is the advantage of using layouts for the programming? And it can be for any of the programming language. So today Iran is also there. Wow, very happy to see Hiran. So yes, why do we need layout in any of the programming languages? If you want to speak, you can speak, or else you can use your chat box for the reply. Yes, very good. To arrange the components in the way we want, because without using layout, we cannot arrange all the components properly. In that case, it will be arranged automatically. So whatever default layout will be there, Applet will organize all the components like that only. But if we use proper layouts, then we can place all the components the way we want. એટલે આપણે component ને જે જગ્યાએ place કરવું હોય, at that place we can organize the components. So that is why we are using layout. And if we talk about core Java, then there are especially four types of layouts. Like one is flow layout, then grid layout, border layout, and the last one is card layout. And out of these four layouts, we have already completed first three layouts, which are flow layout, grid layout, and border layout. So today I will try to cover the concept of panel, as well as, if time permits, we will go with the card layout also. And both the concepts are very interesting and very useful, using which you can place all the components in the very proper manner. So let's try to revise the previous three layouts. So if we talk about flow layout, then as I said, it is one of the default layout where it will arrange all the components in the same sequence in which they are coming. એટલે આપણે એપ્લેટમાં જેટલા બી કમ્પોનન્ટ પ્લેસ કરશું એ બધાના ઓબ્જેક્ટ આપણે જે સિક્વન્સમાં બનાવશું અને જે સિક્વન્સમાં એને આપણે એપ્લેટમાં એડ કરશું, in that same sequence only it will place all the components inside the applet. But the only thing is, using various constructors, if you want to put certain gaps in between all the components, then using flow layout you can do that. The component તો જે સિક્વન્સમાં આવશે એ જ સિક્વન્સમાં મુકાશે, પણ જો બે કમ્પોનન્ટની વચ્ચે તમારે આઈધર હોરિઝોન્ટલ ઓર વર્ટિકલ વચ્ચે કઈ ગેપ મૂકવો છે, તો you can place that gap also using the concept of flow layout. So let me just open that file so that you can have some idea. So this is what we were discussing in the last session. Like there are few controls like text field, one label, three buttons, and one text area. And in this we are setting the flow layout. So here I am giving 2, 15, and 10. So the first parameter, it is for the alignment. So if you want to align all the components to the left, to the right, or center, at that time you can specify the first parameter either 0, 1, or 2. And the last two parameters are for the gap, while second one is for the horizontal gap and this one is for the vertical gap. So if you have more number of components and if you want to put certain pixels of gap, then here in the h gap and v gap you can give the pixels. So here I am just adding first text field, then label, then three buttons and one text area. So it will arrange all the components in the same sequence, but the only difference would be alignment and gapping. So you can see here as alignment I have given 2, and 2 is for right alignment, and in between all the components you can see there is a gap of I think 15 pixels. And if you change it to, let me change the alignment from 2 to 0, in that case it would be aligned to left. And let me put more distance, let's say horizontal gap is 30. So now you can see it is aligned to the left, and in between any two components you will find gap of 30 pixels. So this is what you can do using flow layout. Otherwise it is an optional one and it is a kind of default layout. So if you don't want to put the gap, then even without setting any layout you can do this. Then we were discussing about grid layout. So if we talk about grid, then it's a kind of grid manner. So if you want to place your components in the forms of rows and columns, then always you can go with grid layout. So whenever you want your components to be placed in a kind of grid in the form of row and column, then always go with the grid layout. So in this example, if you have noticed, we were just trying to put 10 different buttons, and for this layout, for this grid layout, I am specifying 4 rows and 2 columns. First parameter is for number of rows and second parameter is for number of columns, and last two parameters are for the gaps, again horizontal gap and vertical gap. And if you don't want to put gap, then also it is fine. In that case you will not be able to find gap between any two components. So here for these 10 buttons I am specifying grid layout with 4 rows and 2 columns. So let's run this. You will be able to find all 10 buttons in the format of 4 rows and 3 columns. You can see here, but here I was not giving 3 columns, I have given 2 only, but using 4 rows and 2 columns, at max you can place only 8 components. So it has automatically appended 1 column as it was required because we are trying to place 10 buttons. So this was all about grid layout, and here if you want to put gap, then you can specify horizontal and vertical gap. So in that case, let me go with the same. So now in between any two components you will be able to find gaps. Look at this. So everywhere it is a gap of 15 pixels. So this was all about grid layout. Then we were discussing about border layout. Like if I want to place all the components in the border of the applet. So like generally we do have 4 borders only. If we talk about any of the rectangle, then we can say there are 4 borders. But here border layout will also give an opportunity to place your components in the center also. So it is following actually 5 different borders. 4 borders which we are doing generally, like left, right, top, bottom, and it is using one more which is center. Let me open that file. So here let's say I'm going to place 4 buttons and one text area. So here my task is I want to place 4 buttons in the 4 borders of the applet, and at the center I want to display text area. So what you can do for that, you can always go with border layout, and border layout is slightly different. The same way we are setting any other layouts, we can do that. First create the object of that particular layout and set the layout using set layout method. So this is what we are doing. And as I said, to set the layout also there are two ways. Either you can create the object and add that object in the set layout method, or directly inside the set layout method you can create the object. Let me go with that. You can do like this also. Border layout bl equal to new border layout, and then you can set the layout and pass bl. This is one way if you don't want to do this. This is what we are doing generally for each and every layout. First create the object of the layout which you want to set, and then using set layout method just set the background, sorry, set the layout. So this is what we are doing. And if you don't want to go with two different steps, then what you can do, you can directly set the layout like this, set layout, and here itself you can create the object. So let's say I want to create set the border layout. So in the parameter only I can create the object like this, new border layout. So both are same, both are the same thing. So now I can say in this applet, the layout which I have set is border layout. And once the border layout is set, what you can do, create the object of all the components and add all the components in that layout. And to do that, what you can do, generally for other layouts, we are adding the components like add and that component itself, add b1, add b2. But if you are talking about border layout, then you need to specify the direction at which you want to set your component. So for example, I want to set button b1 to be displayed at the north direction or north side. In that case, while adding the button, I will have to give north. And similarly for south, east, west, and center. So let's run this. So here you'll be able to find 4 buttons to the 4 borders, and see here you can see text area at the center. Whenever you click on button 1, it gives button 1, then 3, 2, and 4. Fine. So till now, any doubt? Then we can start the concept of panel. Today I'm going to discuss implementation of panel. So far, if we talk about these 3 layouts, if you have any doubt, then let me know, or else we can go ahead. Yes, any doubt? Okay, fine. Okay, great. So now let's start the concept of panel. So first let me introduce panel and then we will start the implementation. So actually panel is a kind of container. Do you know what is container? What is the use of container? Any idea? Yes, if we talk about container, then in general, what is the use of container? Container નો મતલબ શું થાય? શું કામ લાગે આપણને? Anyone? See, name says everything. Whenever I start any topic, then I always try to understand the name. Container. To contain. What does it mean? Components are arranged? No, it's not like that. Container means what? Container નું ગુજરાતી શું થાય? To contain નો મતલબ શું થાય? So my request is whenever you start any new topic, first try to understand the name of the topic. આનું નામ container શું કામ છે? Then you will get it everything. વેરી ગુડ. ભેગું કરી રાખું. ગૂગલ ટ્રાન્સલેટ ચાલુ છે કે શું છે બાજુમાં? ઓકે ફાઇન. એકચ્યુઅલી કન્ટેનર મીન્સ આપણે ધારો કે મોટા મોટા કન્ટેનર નીકળતા હોય તો એમાં શું હોય તો કે જથ્થાબંધ એમાં કંઈક માલ સામાન ભરેલો હોય તો આપણે એને કન્ટેનર કહેતા હોઈએ. બરાબર. કન્ટેન એટલે કે એની અંદર આપણે કંઈક સમાવી શકીએ. ઇટ્સ અ કાઇન્ડ ઓફ કન્ટેનર. તો અહીંયા એ જ વસ્તુ થશે કે આપણે પેનલ છે ઇટ્સ અ કાઇન્ડ ઓફ કન્ટેનર કે જેની અંદર હું બીજા ઘણા બધા કમ્પોનન્ટને અંદર ગોઠવી શકું. એટલે જ્યાં મારે ધારો કે મારી પાસે 4 બટન છે તો એ ચારેય બટનને મારે ભેગું કરી અને એક કમ્પોનન્ટ બનાવવું છે તો ધેટ આઈ કેન ડુ યુઝિંગ પેનલ. એ ચારેય બટનને હું પેનલમાં મૂકી દઉં એટલે એક કમ્પોનન્ટ થઈ ગયું, ધેટ ઇઝ પેનલ. આનો યુઝ શું થાય તો કે ઘણીવાર આપણે લેઆઉટ જ્યારે સેટ કરશું તો ત્યારે using the 4 layouts which we are discussing, we will not be able to place the components in the way we want. Let me give an example. Let's say I want to, let's say this is our applet and inside this I want this kind of structure. Let's say here I want ચલો મારે આવું લેઆઉટ જોઈએ છે. All of these are buttons. This is button 1, this is button 1, this is button 2, this is 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So I want to display 7 buttons like this. Then using which layout it is possible? We have discussed flow layout, grid layout and border layout. Now tell me using which layout we can arrange all the components like this. I want to display 7 buttons like this. क्या layout થી આવું possible છે? Border layout. So again for border layout we have 5 options. Either I can set the button to the left, right, bottom, top or center. So this is my applet window and in between this window I want to do like this. So using border layout it is not possible. Border will display your components here or here or in the bottom or in the top like this. So yes, any other idea about this? આવી રીતે આપણે component મૂકવા છે તો which layout will help us to place the components? Can we do this using grid layout? Obviously flow layout will not work because using flow layout we cannot do like this. It will arrange all the components in the same sequence in which they are coming in the row format only, and once the row is completed it will switch to the next row. So here we don't want that. So you are saying that using grid layout it is possible. How? What kind of grid layout I can set to place the components like this? How many rows are required? How many columns are required? See, grid will give you the components in the rows and columns only. So it's a kind of matrix, and this is not a kind of matrix. You can see here there are first 2 rows, then in the third row there are 2 columns. So using grid layout you cannot club any 2 rows and 2 columns, and that is why we need container. Barabar? So Nikhil is saying container is required for this, and that is why we have to understand the concept of panel. આવી કઈ situation આવે તો directly using layout we cannot place the components like this. તો આપણે શું કરશું? આમાં હું એવું કરી શકું કે આ બધાની અલગ અલગ પેનલ બનાવી દઉં. ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ this is one button, this is second button. તો એના માટે મારે કઈ જરૂર નથી. Let me go with one panel for these 3 buttons. આ 3 બટનની એક પેનલ બનાવી એટલે એક કમ્પોનન્ટ થઈ ગયું. બાકીના બે બટન છે એની એક પેનલ બનાવીએ એટલે બીજું કન્ટેનર થઈ ગયું. હવે આ બે જે પેનલ મળી એના માટેની પાછી એક થર્ડ પેનલ બનાવી દઈએ આપણે. એટલે બધા વચ્ચે આપણી પાસે હવે એમ કહી શકીએ કે એક જ આપણી પાસે કંટ્રોલ થઈ ગયું. તો હવે મારી પાસે કેટલા કંટ્રોલ છે તો કે પેલા એક બટન ઉપર છે એ ધીસ ઇઝ ફર્સ્ટ બટન, ધીસ ઇઝ સેકન્ડ બટન એન્ડ ધી થર્ડ વન ઇઝ પેનલ. આ પેનલની અંદર બે સબ પેનલ હશે અને બે સબ પેનલની અંદર પાછા બટન હશે. હવે આ ત્રણ કમ્પોનન્ટને આપણે મૂકવું હોય તો we can easily place using one column and three rows. So you will get this kind of structure. એ આપણે હમણાં જોશું. Clear? So are you getting why we need panel? What is the use of container? Yes, જો આવી રીતે ખાલી સિમ્પલ હશે તો it is not possible to place using grid layout. બરાબર? તો આપણે શું કરીએ કે આ એક બટન છે એ બટન આપણે as it is રાખશું. સેકન્ડ બટન છે એને પણ આપણે as it is રાખીએ. હવે જે અહીંયા ઇનર પોર્શન છે આટલો પોર્શન એના માટે આપણે શું કરીએ પેલા આ ત્રણ બટન માટે એક પેનલ બનાવીએ. એટલે લેટ્સ સે એના માટેની આ પેનલ થઈ ગઈ ફોર 3 બટન. એટલે હવે એના માટે એક કમ્પોનન્ટ થઈ ગયું. આ બે બટન માટેની બીજી પેનલ. સો લેટ્સ સે ધીસ ઇઝ સેકન્ડ પેનલ. હજુ આવું સ્ટ્રક્ચર પણ આપણે બનાવી ના શકીએ. ઇટ ઇઝ ઓલ્સો નોટ પોસિબલ. તો હવે શું કરીએ આ બે પેનલને પાછું એડ કરીએ. તો એ બેને એડ કરશો એટલે આવી એક નવી પેનલ થઈ જશે. તો હવે આપણે કહી શકીએ કે there are three components only. એક બટન, સેકન્ડ બટન અને થર્ડ પેનલ. ત્રણેય કમ્પોનન્ટને આપણે મૂકવું હોય તો we can easily place using 3 rows and 1 column. Are you getting me? And that is why we need panel. So okay, fine, let's start the program so that you will get it in more detail. So let me show how you can work with panel. So let's start the demo directly. So this is very interesting and you will have to be with me, and whenever you find any difficulties just stop me. It's going to be very interesting concept, and I'm going to give few examples to you also to solve it by your own. So let's say demo panel. So first let me put 3 buttons without even using panel. Let me first extend the class with Applet. This is what we are doing normally. And let me import the package. You can implement the init method. Let's say I want to display 3 buttons, B1, B2 and B3. Then create the object of all 3 buttons. Let's say button 1, let's say button 2, and this is button 3. And now let me add all the buttons inside the applet. Add B1, add B2 and add B3, and let's run this file. So without any layout and without panel, we know how it looks like. So these are the 3 buttons. Done. Now what I want to do, I want to combine all 3 buttons together into a single panel. આ ત્રણેય બટનને મારે એક જ કન્ટેનરમાં ભેગી કરવી છે so that later on I can refer only a single component. તો હું શું કરીશ એના માટે મારે એક પેનલ જોશે, and for panel also there is an inbuilt class. So simply you can just create the object the way we are creating it for the other components and import the package which is in AWT. Create the object of panel. Let's say p equal to new panel. So again, while creating object of panel, you can see here there are 2 constructors. If you don't want to set any layout to the panel, then you can always go with the first constructor. એટલે તમારે પેનલમાં અત્યારે 3 બટન એડ કરવા છે, તો તો ઘણીવાર એવી રિક્વાયરમેન્ટ હશે કે પેનલની અંદર પણ પોતાનું કંઈક સબ લેઆઉટ આપણે સેટ કરવું પડશે. ધારો કે કોઈ પેનલ એવી હોય કે જ્યાં ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ આપણે આ જ એક્ઝામ્પલ ડિસ્કસ કરીએ કે અહીંયા અંદરની આ પેનલ છે. I'm talking about this panel. So there are 3 buttons, but those 3 buttons are in the form of 3 rows and 1 column. તો મારે એ પેનલ માટે પોતાનું ગ્રીડ લેઆઉટ અલગથી સેટ કરવું પડશે. તો એ ટાઈમે હું શું કરી શકું? અહીંયા હું સેકન્ડ કન્સ્ટ્રક્ટર લઉં અને ત્યાં હું ઓબ્જેક્ટ બનાવી દઉં ગ્રીડ લેઆઉટનો, લાઈક ધીસ grid layout, and I can specify 3 rows and 1 columns if I want to set the layout in the panel. તો હું આવું કરીશ. અને જો પેનલમાં મારે કાંઈ લેઆઉટ સેટ નહીં કરવું હોય તો I can directly create the object like this. Are you getting me? So as per your need, you will have to choose the appropriate constructor. If you want to set background in the panel, then you can do like that. And if you don't want to set the background, then you don't need to set the layout. Are you getting me? What I'm trying to say? સમજાય છે બધાને શું કહું છું? જ્યારે પેનલમાં તમારે કમ્પોનન્ટ એડ કરવા હશે તો એ પેનલની શું રિક્વાયરમેન્ટ છે એ તમને ખબર હોવી જોઈએ કે પેનલમાં જે બટન આપણે એડ કરીએ છીએ એમાં આપણે કયા લેઆઉટની જરૂર છે. અકોર્ડિંગલી યુ વિલ હેવ ટુ સેટ ધી બેકગ્રાઉન્ડ. સમજાય છે કે નહીં? Okay, fine. So here let's say I don't want to set any layout, so I'm just creating the object. હવે કન્ટેનરની અંદર કોઈ કમ્પોનન્ટને એડ કરવો હોય તો what you can do? Simply જે કન્ટેનરમાં એડ કરવા છે, use the object of that container. So I'm going to add all 3 buttons inside the panel container. So I'm going to use p dot add, and you can add the number of components like b1. Similarly, let's say b2 and b3. Here, and let me run this file. So it is not there. Why? What could be the problem? I'm not able to find any of the buttons. What could be the problem here? And see, whenever you are adding components inside the panel, you don't need to add 2 times. So here I'm already adding the 3 buttons inside the panel, so this is not required. But still, if you use that code, it is not an issue. If that code is there, then also it is fine, but it is not required. But still I will not be able to find the output. No button will be there. You can see here. Why? Listener, see, I am not going to implement any of the event as of now. Listener ક્યારે જરૂર પડશે? જ્યારે આપણે ઇવેન્ટ ઇમ્પ્લિમેન્ટ કરીએ કે બટન ઉપર ક્લિક કરું તો મારે આવું જોઈએ છે, ઇન્ટરફેસ ઇમ્પ્લિમેન્ટ કરીએ. અત્યારે મારે ખાલી ડિસ્પ્લે કરાવવા છે, and for the purpose of displaying the components we don't need any listener. જ્યારે ઇવેન્ટ સાથે ડીલ કરશું ત્યારે it is fine, we have to implement the interface, we have to add the listeners. પણ અત્યારે આપણે ખાલી લેઆઉટ જોવું છે, કમ્પોનન્ટને ખાલી ડિસ્પ્લે કરાવવા છે. So why we are not able to get it? Very good. See, we have added all the buttons inside the panel, but panel is not added inside the applet. સમજે છે? બટનને પેનલમાં એડ કરી દીધા, but that container is not added inside the applet. Then how it will display? તો મારે બટનની જેમ કન્ટેનરને પણ એડ કરવું પડશે. So let me add p. પેનલને આપણે એડ કરી દીધી. Now let's run this. So now you can see the 3 buttons. So here all 3 buttons are, અત્યારે ભલે તમને અલગ અલગ બટન લાગે છે, but after all it's a one component only, which is one container. એટલે હવે આને તમે એક કમ્પોનન્ટ તરીકે જ્યાં જરૂર પડશે ત્યાં you can use it. Now let me set the background to reduce the gap, એટલે તમને આઈડિયા આવશે. અત્યારે ત્રણેય બટન વચ્ચે તમે ગેપ જોયો હશે, because defaultly it gives gap. તો મને આ પેનલમાં એવું જોઈએ છે કે 1 row and 3 columns. So let me set the grid layout. I want 1 row and 3 columns to place 3 buttons. Now you will see here. See, now there is no gap in between any 2 components. So now you can say this is one panel only. દેખાય છે 3 બટન, પણ આ તમારું એક component થઈ ગયું. There is only one button, or you can say one container. Clear? Are you getting me? So this is how you can add any components inside the panel. The same flow we are going to use in the upcoming programs. પહેલા આપણે panelનો object બનાવશું. If layout is required, we will set the layout in that panel, and whatever components we want to add inside the panel, we will add all the components like this. Clear up to this? Any doubt in this? ચાલો તો એક હજુ આગળ એક્ઝામ્પલ વિચારીએ આપણે હમણાં જે પેઇન્ટમાં ડ્રો કર્યું હતું એવું, so that you will have clear understanding. Let me just erase it. ચલો મારે એવું જોઈએ છે કે અહીંયા first two buttons and here I want to divide it. Here let's say I want 3 buttons, and here I want 2 buttons. So can you design a structure like this using the concept of all the components and panel? ચાલો કોઈ મને કહેશે કે આમાં શું કરવું પડશે? What should be the way to place all the components? મેં already discuss કરી જ લીધું છે, so now you should be able to answer it. Two components and 2 panels. Okay. What about others? See, now whenever you want to do like this, then it varies from person to person. બરાબર? આમાં તમે જેવું વિચારશો એવું તમને આઈડિયા મળશે. ઘણા લોકોને એવું થશે કે I want to go with 2 components and 2 panels. કોઈને એવું થાય કે મારે અહીંયા 1 panel, અહીંયા second panel, એ બેને ક્લબ કરવા માટે અહીંયા third panel, એ બે પેનલને ક્લબ કરવા માટે આ third panel લેશું. પછી આ એક બટન, બીજું બટન અને આ પેનલ એને ક્લબ કરવા માટે ચોથી પેનલ લેશું. So you can do this. કોઈને એમ થાય કે ચોથી પેનલની જરૂર નથી, using 2 button and 1 panel we can do this, તો એવું પણ થઈ શકે. બરાબર? So it is not that કે હું અહીંયા તમને જે ફ્લોમાં સમજાવીશ it will be like that form only. તમે હજુ થોડુંક વિચારશો તો એમાં તમને કંઈક નવા આઈડિયા પણ મળશે. તો in that case you can use the panel like that. So let's try to do this first. First let me see how many buttons are required. There are 7 buttons. So let's just create the object of all 7 buttons. Let me remove everything first. ચલો હવે આપણે 7 બટન જોશે. So let me create the object of all 7 buttons. B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6 and B7. Just create the object. B1 is new button. Let's say button 1. And similarly 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if you are not bored, I would like to continue this session for a few minutes so that I can complete the concept of panel, because our session is going to be ended after 3 minutes. What do you think? Are you ready? Then I would like to continue this session for a few minutes only so that I can complete this. Okay, thank you. So yes, let's say there are 7 buttons. ચલો હવે આપણે શું કરીએ? Let's see that for this button number 3, 4 and 5, I want to add all 3 buttons inside the panel. તો આપણે પહેલા તો એક પેનલ એના માટે જોશે. So let me go with one panel. આપણે step by step જશું. At a time I will not create the object of all the panels, so that you can understand કે જ્યારે જ્યારે પેનલની જરૂર પડશે ત્યારે જ આપણે લેશું. તો આપણને અહીંયા આઈડિયા આવે છે કે અહીંયા બટન 3, 4 અને 5 એને આપણે પેનલમાં એડ કરવા પડશે. બરાબર? So let me create the object of that panel. P1 equal to new panel. Do we need to set any layout in that panel? You can see here. In that panel, do we need to set any layout? Yes, grid is required, and we can set the grid layout with 3 rows and 1 column. કારણ કે આટલા પોર્શનમાં આપણે શું જોઈએ છે? 1, 2 and 3 rows and 1 column only. તો આપણે શું કરશું? While creating object, we will set the grid layout. Let's say new grid layout, and number of rows are 3, number of columns 1. હવે એ પેનલમાં જે બટનની રિક્વાયરમેન્ટ છે એને આપણે એડ કરીએ. p1.add, I want to add b3, p1.add, I want to add b4, p1.add, I want to add b5, and let me add the panel inside the applet. Done. તો હવે આપણે જોશું કે ત્રણે ત્રણ બટન માટેની એક પેનલ થઈ ગઈ હશે. So you can see button 3, 4 and 5, and those 3 buttons are clubbed together inside the single panel. તો આપણી એક પેનલ રેડી થઈ ગઈ. આવું જ આપણે બીજી પેનલ માટે કરી શકીએ. For this, where we want to go with 2 buttons, button number 6 and 7, એના માટેની એક પેનલ બનાવીએ. એના માટે ગ્રીડ લેઆઉટ સેટ કરીએ. Number of rows are 2, number of column which is 1. Yes or no? So let me go with second panel. Let's say P2. Just create the object of panel P2. P2 equal to new panel, and again let me set the grid layout, where number of rows are 2, number of columns 1, and add the remaining button into P2. So P2 dot add B6 and P2 dot add